Hello, welcome to another interview with one of our Leica Academy instructors. Today we're going to be talking to Bill Green, who, like the rest of us in this game, his career goes back quite a few years. Bill and I have known each other for quite a long time. I used to work in Sydney. Bill's still working in Sydney as a commercial photographer. But rather than me tell you about Bill, why don't I get Bill to tell you a little bit about how he started and what sort of work he does at the moment. So Bill, welcome to the interview, and over to you.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for that. My name is Bill Green. I've been a commercial photographer for about 30 years, maybe a little bit longer. I started in England, but I was really an assistant, and I went to college in England. Worked for lots of great photographers from fashion, advertising, portraiture, got a real grounding in absolutely everything. And then I pretty much came over to Australia and started in Sydney. So I started over here, and since I've been here, I've done a lot of portraiture, music, probably celebrity portraits, and commercial work that's, well, corporate stuff, really. So, quite a lot of stuff.
On that subject, you said at the beginning you worked for a lot of amazing photographers back in London. You can name drop here as much as you like, because I know you've worked for some quite well-known names.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wasn't their main assistant, but I have second assisted for some fantastic people. John Swanell, David Bailey, Terence Donovan, and people like that, yeah.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
And some other people that don't get the credibility, that are not as famous, but they are equally as good photographers.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. It's not all about the name, is it? It's about the work, I suppose. So I suppose that means we should have a look at some of your images, and we've got a wide selection. Bill's chosen a dozen or so images that he'd like to share with us. Going back a few years, some of them, and also some very, very recent stuff, which we'll come to at the end. So I'm just going to share my screen across to the images here, and there we go. So the first of these, this is Richard Clapton, I believe. So tell me how that picture came to be.
Okay, well, the first thing I need to say about it is the reason it's actually a magazine is that I've lost the negatives. It's about the only job I've done that I've ever lost the negatives. And so that was the full page that had appeared in the magazine. So I had to photograph that to show that to you. So I guess that was one of the first pictures I did when I came here, where I got a really good opportunity to get a decent photograph, like a full page in a decent magazine. It was a magazine called Follow Me Gentlemen that doesn't exist like many magazines anymore. But it was a high quality, bit sort of voguey sort of feel kind of magazine,
FMG, you call it, didn't they? Is it FMG that people might know it as?
No, that's Follow Me Gentlemen, FMG.
Yeah, that's
possibly,
right. I remember that magazine, Yeah.
So, I had to go and photograph him. They told, I'd only just come from England. And to be honest, I really didn't know who Richard Clapton was. I'd heard of him. And this is always weird when you come from another place and everyone goes, it's Richard Clapton. And you go, okay, I don't really know who that is. But he had a new album coming out, so we want to do some pictures for the interview. And they sent me along to this, it was a rehearsal studio in Ultimo. And I walked in and it was like this warehouse that was awful. It was completely empty. It had all these microphone stands sort of stacked up. And that was where we had to do the photo. And I thought, oh my God, this is terrible. There's nothing here. And outside was very industrial. I didn't like the look of it. So when he came in, I thought, oh God, what am I going to do with this? I think it's one of those things where you sometimes have to build a photograph. If there's not a photograph that's immediately there, then you have to make it happen. So I grabbed some of all the microphone stands there and sort of made this little framework around him. Got up a little, it's not hard to get up higher than him. He's not a very tall man. And then I just fired a flash directly at his glasses and his flash, which gives that sort of, that flary sort of look, which I quite liked. But as it was on medium format film, it still had quite a sharp image.
That's really, really rather spectacular. And again, shooting on medium format was not the easiest thing in the world. And I think people who've never shot medium format film can't appreciate just how much easier it is these days with digital cameras. Now, the next picture is a well-known face in this country. This is Peter Garrett, isn't it?
Yeah. So this picture was for Simply Living magazine, I think, which was more about his environmental stuff than the music stuff. But I think because I photographed music, they sent me along to do this. And the art director was asking for a very grainy look. It was shot on film again, pretty much editorial people. Mostly were shooting in black and white film at the time. This is on 35mm Tri-X probably. I think it was shot at 1600. So there's a real graininess to it and a real starkness to it. I mean, the man has incredibly white skin, so, you know, it's the relief from the shadows. That's all it really is. It's a very skull-like sort of shape, but it has a very, I don't know, I like the angle and I like the grain. I like the fact that he's actually not looking at the camera, which is somewhat unusual for portrait.
Yeah, I like the intensity, actually. And also, I didn't realize this was actually a portrait. I've known this picture. I've seen it before, but I thought it was a live shot. But
no, not at all.
Something you've deliberately put together. And that's because one thing about it is there's a certain amount of movement in it as well, which I think really adds to it. And everybody's looking for sharp and crisp these days, but there's a lot to be said for including movement in a shot, just the right amount anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was sort of required, really. I think to get that sort of feel, it really helps with the blurry sort of look, I think.
No, it's a remarkable and very, very strong image, that one.
Yeah, thank you.
Moving on to the next two. These looks familiar. That's a Bono, I believe.
Yeah. So used to do a lot of live music stuff for Rolling Stone magazine, for record companies. I think the thing is, usually when you go along to a show, they ask you to do 3 songs, no flash. That's what they say to you. This one, they said it's 3 songs, bring a flash, which is exceptionally unusual.
That's amazing.
And you can kind of see why, because basically the first few songs were black on black. And Bono had this incredibly shiny suit on and the glasses. So when you fired a flash, you got all these fantastic reflections off the suit. Plus, of course, you can actually see him. You can actually define him. And so it shot in color transparency, which was quite nerve-wracking with flash for such a moving subject. But a lot of them turned out incredibly well. In fact, most of them did, actually. It was a really quite a high hit rate. But, you know, we were on stage, which was fantastic. One of the things that you don't often get is they put us on stage with photographers at either side. I think on the shot on the right, you can actually see the photographer packed behind. And he just kept coming up to us and filming us, and he came so close to us. It was amazing. In fact, I was the second photographer in, and he came so close at one point, and I think I had like a sort of zoomed out to 50 or something. I couldn't even focus on him. He was that close. He was pushing up against the first photographer's face. It was
not what you expected at a show like that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And the other thing with flash, on black, it's astonishingly hard to get the exposure right on the skin. So they come up superbly.
Yeah. That's where things like clip tests come in. Where you actually process a little bit and make sure it's looking all right.
You just got to cover your bases, don't you?
Absolutely.
Now, complete change of pace here from celebrities and rock and roll to, well, tell me where this is.
This is London Bridge. One of the things that I've done for many years is I carry a camera with me all the time. I don't do it all the time now, but that's usually because we've got too many cameras. I'm not sure what to take with me half the time. But I was carrying this camera around, and it's actually a 500mm mirror lens, this particular lens. And I was shot from the embankment, taking a shot at London Bridge. And I just saw this really moody photograph. And I thought, oh, that's got an amazing sort of feel to it. I took a few frames, and the people there, they're in their own little world. They're in the middle of the city, but they seem somewhat isolated. And I found it really intriguing. And the lights that you see at the top there, these are sort of lights along the embankment that are just completely out of focus, that just fit in with the frame. So I've had some exhibitions of photography, and this is something that was included in one of my exhibitions, and it was quite a big print, and I just really like it. Some things that you like yourself, and if you like it, then that's fine. You do photography for yourself when you're not being a commercial photographer, really. Yeah,
absolutely. And one thing to point out here is this donut effect is very, very much characteristic of mirror lenses, which you really don't see used these days. I think you can still buy them on the second-hand market, but you get this very distinct donut-shaped highlights, which in this case works incredibly well, I think.
Yeah, I have seen a Leica R1 for sale second-hand somewhere on the net, which I thought, well, that would be interesting. That would be really nice.
Yeah, it's just a distinct look it's a very sort of 70s, 80s sort of look, isn't it? If you think
it is of a time, but it has a use, definitely.
It does, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, another change of pace here from well, I was going to say from the sublime to the ridiculous, but that's probably not really right. Tell us about this one.
Okay, so this is part of an exhibition I had called Drag Living, and I used to work with a lot of makeup artists and stylists, and a couple of them were actually drag queens or ex-drag queens, and they sort of introduced me to a few people, and I did some photography for this show called the Drag Industry Variety Awards, otherwise known as Diva. And I used to do their posters every year. And it was quite a big production. Like, we went into a studio and, it was really nicely done. But out of that, I thought that I could do a personal project. Most people see drag queens on stage. They see them sort of performing. But we had this concept that what happens if you did drag queens at home? So that's why it's called Drag Living. And the idea was that we picked 13 drag queens and we basically gave them a theme or asked them to come up with a theme. And the theme for this one is A Quiet Little Drink at Home. That's the title, really, of this particular shot. And it's shot on 6:7 film, and it's lit with tungsten lighting, which is very portable, very easy to do. Very nice black and white.
You had an exhibition of this work, I believe, in Sydney, because I think I went to it with you. It was in Darlinghurst, I think. Right.
And it's the shots have been shown in lots of different places, and I've been in quite a lot of magazines and stuff like that. This is one of my favourites. I just don't have them all sort of scanned to a decent size. One of the things I have to do is really, I've got an archive of stuff which I need to scan, which every photographer will tell you they need to do. But I haven't got everything to hand that was shot for film,
Right. And then another very big change. I mean, there's an amazing variety of looks here. This is very abstract. Tell us about this one, Bill.
So I was on holiday in Smith's Lakes, up the north coast a bit from Sydney, a few hours north, and there's like a natural lagoon there of a very narrow, very flat and sort of shallow lake. And because it's different depths, it has different color water. And there's really in the middle of the day, there was this sandbank, which you can see, and the sea is on the other side of it. And I just noticed this four-wheel drive was parked right in the middle of it, as if you had placed it. And this is not a photoshopped car. It's not put in there. And the colors are fantastic. So it's shot on color film, which is, the colors are really, I don't think it's even polarized. It might be. I can't remember. But it's just got this extraordinary blocks of color. And it just, that focus point of the actual forward drive, I think, it just makes the photograph. It'd be nothing without it. Indeed. It sort of anchors the photograph. Compositionally, it sort of breaks a lot of rules, but it's more just blocks of color. And I think if it works, then why not,
Well, it reminds me of three artists' work. Gursky.
Yeah. Not as sharp as Gursky's work, I think.
Yeah, and Murray Fredericks with his Flat Horizons.
Yeah.
And a bit of Rothko thrown in, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, it's interesting how one can be inspired by other work, even maybe subliminally. But I haven't seen this picture before, and I've always enjoyed it. It's because it is very different to what you normally shoot.
I think when it comes down to subliminally, basically, we don't know what we're being influenced by. There's so many pictures out there that people have been looking at for years and years and years. Every little thing influences you in some way or another. It's not that you copy something. It's just that things seep into your consciousness, I think.
Well, I think we interviewed Stu Robertson last week in our webinars, and he started mentioning this concept, and I can't quite adjacency theory or something, and it's something to do with that you are the sum of everything which has happened to you up to this point, which of course influences what you see, how you see it, and how you capture things when you're a photographer. So I guess that's why people's work develops over time, and it can go in many different directions, and it can even come back to where it started. So I think it's quite interesting to be open to that.
I think it's good to be open to people's work, but I mean, direct copying is never going to be a direct copy anyway. But I'm not in favour of people directly copying someone else's work.
No, I think that's fair to say, because that's not. It needs to be at least derivative in a positive direction, or maybe paying an homage to something. But again, there's only so many things out there in the world, but there's an infinite number of ways of capturing them, I think. And that's one of the great things about photography, is that you do have that limitless way of seeing things, which is really good. Yeah. Okay, back to people. Another famous face. This is David Beckham, I believe.
Yeah, that was shot for a sports PR company. He came over here to play football. I think he was with LA Galaxy, and he had three sponsors, sponsored by three people. One of them was his sporting gear, so it was to photograph for Adidas, I guess. And there were TV crews on the boat. I got lots of stuff of him just on the fly, and then we had to do the setup portrait. And as usual, TV crews always take over, and they don't let photographers do their thing. So I was asked to get a shot of him with the bridge, which, a lot of photographers always get a bit pissed off about, because it's, why do we have to have the bridge and everything? But I guess if you're trying to place something in Sydney, then it's what we all look for. We just get fed up with taking photos of the bridge. But so the idea was that the bridge should be in the background. Now, the boat was actually moving. We were on our way to somewhere else to do some other photos. So I just got him for a very short period of time to do this particular shot. And the boat was sort of sliding across the bridge sideways. So, he was moving across, and he's so focused. I just said to him, look, we're going to do this really fast. I just need, you to just give me a few frames. And I think he did 3 frames smiling and 2 frames like that, and I preferred this particular shot. And
it's a nice expression.
All totally usable. It's amazing, that ability that people have that are used to being photographed. They know how they want to be photographed, and they can just do it. And this is just a flash that's bounced off the ceiling of the boat. To balance the light, because there's so much more light behind than there is in front.
I guess that goes to show how important it is to be confident in your technique, because you can't be fluffing around with light meters and just hang on a sec, let me just fluff around with which lens should I use. You've got to be ready now. And I know in your work doing movie stills as well, there is no time to be faffing around, because you've got your 10 seconds to shoot, and then you've got to be out of the set. Very difficult.
Yeah. When I first started off doing this stuff, especially band stuff, you would actually get a lot more access, and someone would give you a phone number, and you'd go and have a meeting with someone, or you'd go and do your photos on your own almost. Then obviously publicists crept in afterwards, and you get less and less time to do anything. And one of the things I have noticed about photography is, it used to be someone would say, oh, you've only got an hour, and you'd go, oh, I've only got an hour, and now you've only got 5 minutes. And there's quite a lot of pressure. I mean, the way I always sort of shoot stuff like that is I try and get the photograph that I want immediately, and then if there's any time, I try and do something else. So I guess this is why a lot of these photos, have a certain look to them, because there's not the time to take it further.
No, that's a fair point. Pluck the low-hanging fruit first, and if you've got time, go for the more exotic stuff. All right. And then another change of pace. Looks familiar. This would be Joshua Tree in California, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. I lived in LA for a couple of years, and Joshua Tree was, when we first arrived in LA, it was pouring with rain in winter, believe it or not. They say it never rains in Southern California, but it did. So we disappeared out to the desert in winter. And this was the first morning we woke up there just as the sun was coming up, and it had snowed in the desert. So on the ground is snow. You've got these Joshua trees, and you've got the warm light coming through from the sun. And it just was such a magical image, and everything was so crisp and clean. You always get some pollution, because probably, you can see that slightly on the horizon there. There's LA looms large, even though it's a long way away. But it's a nice clean image. The colors are fantastic, and it's quite unusual to get a lone Joshua tree. I mean, there are others in that shot, but like this, I remember Anton Corbijn talking about when he was shooting U2, the Joshua tree. He wanted a lone Joshua tree, and he actually ended up moving out of the area to find one on the edge of the area. This one is sort of in the area where all the Joshua trees are. So,
wow. Yeah. It's a very quiet image, I think, too.
Look, okay, so to say about that, I love, because I photograph people all the time, when it comes to photographing my own stuff, I try to have no people in the photos. It's a thing that I kind of do. I never really noticed it at first, but now I know that it's definitely a thing that I do. I just want a bit of peace and quiet, and I love the idea that you can still go to places and have a feeling of peace and quiet, because it's something we get less and less of in this day and age.
Fair point. All right. And this is out of the car window, I think.
This is out of the car window. This is a different season. I went there several times. This is in summer when it gets exceptionally hot and hardly anybody goes there. I just had some time, so I went down there. And it was boiling hot, so I thought, well, I'll just sit in the car for a bit. And then I just looked out the window and saw the sort of sun coming down like that. I thought, oh, this is really nice. This is a nice shot. And, just putting the windows out of focus. It's just a nice sort of mood. One of the problems with photographing Joshua trees is that it's the most chaotic landscape you'll ever find. They're absolutely everywhere. It's absolutely opposite to the English countryside, where everything is neat and tidy and looks like it's come off a chocolate box cover. This is absolutely chaotic. So, it just was a little bit of a different photograph.
And this picture has a similar color palette, but it's obviously a very different location. Looks like Japan to me. Tell us how this picture came to be.
This picture's taken in Kyoto, and it's one of the beautiful palaces with a fantastic, autumn leaves that are really beautiful. And it's a really quite a serene scene taken on the CL and with the Summicron 35mm. I took the CL and 3 lenses to Japan, and such a beautiful lens to use, and such a great camera system to use for something like this. So quick, so portable, very light. I just really like the photograph. The light is beautiful. It's got a very still sort of feel to it.
Yeah, it's very quiet, like we were talking about before, because normally you'd expect to see lots and lots of people. So obviously a stolen moment of peace and quiet in a very busy place.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of people around, but it's always waiting for that kind of one moment, really, isn't it?
Now, I think these last 3 pictures are on the Leica SL2, which you've been testing over the last couple of weeks, I believe. So tell me about the picture and tell me about your impressions of the camera a little bit too.
Well, I mean, we're sort of in this semi-lockdown situation right now. So these are the sort of photos I've been taking while I've not been able to go further afield. All these 3 photos are taken in the last 2 or 3 weeks. This one is local to where I live. This is one of the places where I've been going for a walk. And this particular morning, I went out and it was absolutely stunning. There was so much light on the water that if you expose for the highlights, everything else goes very, very dark. There's a high shutter speed to freeze the movement. But the resolution is fantastic, and the clarity is absolutely beautiful. It's also a really easy camera to use, I found.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just really quite surprised at how easy everything is. The menu's laid out really well. I love the back focusing. It's really great.
Yeah, that's so elegant, I think. It's something I've enjoyed using with the SL and now the SL2 as well. And this image here, which shot in it also recently, there's a story in this one as well, I believe.
Yeah, a few days earlier than this, I was walking on Port Kembla Beach, and I saw this backlit sort of all these clouds with this one little black cloud, and it was just like, wow, I've never seen a black cloud like that. And I took a picture on my phone and put it on Instagram. And then a few days later, I came down to do these photos, and I saw this huge black cloud, which is actually the same black cloud. And this is Port Kembla Steelworks. And even though there's no smoke coming out of the chimneys at the moment, every now and then all this smoke just belches out of these chimneys all at the same time. And this big smoke ball, it's not a cloud, it's just sort of pollution and smoke. It looks extraordinary, but it's obviously not too great for our environment. But
no, it is extraordinary. I did think it was just a very unusually black cloud until you explained the story behind it. It's quite
I like the space around it. I like the scale of it. The fact that you can see how big it is, and that there's enough space around it to sort of hold it all together. Again, this is a very, very backlit, very strongly lit situation, and was able to hold beautiful detail.
Yeah, there's a lot of backlighting in your shots, and I think in general, backlighting is one of the strongest sort of photographic techniques that you can use to get really dramatic images. Front lighting is just so boring, but this sort of the silhouette, it makes the smokestack stand out so much stronger, very clearly. And obviously with a backlit cloud, it emphasizes the blackness of the cloud as well. So yeah, very strong image. The last picture, I believe, is a little more abstract in itself, again on the SL2.
Yeah, that was only taken a few days ago. There's big seas at the weekend here, and I just thought it's not exactly a panning shot. I just thought I'd move the camera, a handheld shot. Just gives this really abstract, blurry sort of look. Sometimes it's nice to, even though everything is nice and sharp, usually it's nice to go the other way sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can, what was it Ansel Adams said? Nothing worse than a sharp picture of a fuzzy concept.
Yeah, that's right.
Sharpness and technical perfection to the art's content, but sometimes a picture's got to have a feel and a mood and some drama to it, which is...
Yeah, well, it has a nice mood to it. I just liked it.
All right, well, that's the last picture. I'm going to turn that off and come back to us both here. And I'm going to thank Bill for taking the time to share his work with us. And remember that the Leica instructors will do one-on-one sessions with guests, either for portfolio reviews or for just advice that you need. So we all have our different strengths, and we're here to help. So if you need anything from us, just check out the website and you'll see the one-on-one workshops and the portfolio reviews there as well. So look, Bill, thank you so much for taking the time. It's really enjoyable seeing your work. And when we all get let out of our houses, hopefully we'll be able to do some in-person workshops as well. So thanks very much.
That would be great. Okay. Thanks very much, Nick. It was great.